Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Living African Podcast with your host, Anya Fombat. And I have here with me today my big sister slash big friend slash mentor. And that's my Ethiopian sister. Her name is Kelem Kejela. And we're here to talk about mental health from a different point of view, and that's also specifically in relation to substance abuse. So Kelem has a very, very interesting story. I've known Kelem for a very long time, I must say, and in case she doesn't know it, I really look up to her. So this is such a conversation that I'm really
Thank you.
excited to have, and it's always fun with us. So I'm super excited to have fun, in this conversation, because that's just basically how it always is whenever we link up and we have a conversation. So welcome to Living African Podcast, Kelem. It's such an honor to have you. How are you doing today?
Doing well. Thank you, and thank you for saying this kind word. But you are the young sister, definitely, and a big sister to my daughter. Yes,
Right.
and then we've been friends, family, colleagues, and everything, all the above.
I
And
know,
I'm
for
happy to
almost
be
20
here.
years.
Yes, it is. It is.
I know, and it's been
Yes.
so much fun. You're that one person that I feel like you know every single person in Addis, like every single influential person in Ethiopia. It's like everyone knows Kelem. And it's like
If you say so.
yeah, no, that's true. It's like you know everybody, and it's always so much fun, hanging out with you. Like you bring me into rooms that I never would have been if I were, if I didn't know you, So I really appreciate all the people that you have made me to meet and you've had me, mingle with, So I really appreciate that. But most importantly, I am super excited for our conversation today. So, can you introduce yourself to the guests?
Sure. Yeah, so my name is Kelem or Kejela, and I know it's a long name, but I have also a nickname, Munit. And in short, I'm Kelem anyway. So I'm born Ethiopian, but and also moved to America when I was like 13, 14.
Mhm.
So I pretty much graduated my high school in the US, and then after 21 years, moved back to Ethiopia.
Yeah.
So I'm a diaspora within Ethiopia. So I've been in Ethiopia for 20 years and back in Ethiopia and with my two kids. And I work for the United Nations. And also my two kids, my daughter has graduated high school and she's third year in university in Boston. And my son is a senior this year, ready to
Awesome.
again attend college. Yes, that's pretty
Awesome.
much why I am. Yeah.
That's so nice. It kind of feels like we all grew up together. Remember back in the days, like when we always used to meet up at, because my mom also is your colleague as well. Like, so we used to meet
Oh
up.
no, my boss. Your mom is my boss.
I
And
don't want to
my
get you into
my
trouble, right?
exactly, not my college. Correction there.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, it feels like she's even your big sister, like I feel like my
She's
mom is more your
definitely,
big
no doubt.
sister than your
No
boss.
doubt. No doubt. Just, no doubt. I mean, she's definitely a big sister.
I
Yes.
know. And,
Yeah.
like I feel like we just grew up with your two kids, they're like siblings, especially Daniela. She's like my little sister,
Yes. And then you
so
do look alike, the two of you.
I
That's what
know,
we always say, Dr. Grace and I. Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
So, I really feel like, you're that one Ethiopian family that we can, really call family. So, tell us, I really want to get the audience actually to know about your history, like how you grew up and who we're actually going to be talking about today in relation to substance abuse.
Okay, so this is a very dear and sensitive topic to me because my younger brother, who is he would have been in October, this past October, he would have been 34.
Mhm.
He committed suicide um, 7 years ago.
Mm.
So the how I mean, obviously he's a young man who grew up in Ethiopia, finished high school, attended university in India, and when I came back to Ethiopia, by then he already graduated university, and then he was working, very handsome, very nice, very kind, and but yet he was very quiet. He's the quiet type from among our brothers and sisters. I guess he's the only quiet one, and he was the youngest one.
Mm-hmm.
And so I came back to Ethiopia in 2002, and it was so nice to have him in my life. And he was working. He was, the big uncle, or the youngest uncle for my children.
Mm-hmm.
And before I know it, things were changing. And I mean, he was working, but yet he couldn't keep up with the pressure that he was feeling within the society. And obviously he was, he was independent, but yet not enough. And I think that comes from the fact that he had mental issue, like the depression, and he
Yeah.
couldn't cope. So with all the pressure, so before I know it, he started abusing some sort of uh, I, maybe alcohol first at the beginning, and then later is chat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the
It's very
grass.
common here in Ethiopia. The green leaves,
Yeah, the green leaves. Yeah.
cat, they call it the cat. And on, I think after that, maybe some kind of drug, but I don't know. But struggling. So we didn't notice first, but my mom one day, she went to his house and she realized there was nothing in his house,
Mm.
because he was fired from his work, and then he had sold everything within the house to maintain his habit
Drug
or get
abuse. Yeah.
his fix.
The addiction.
So the addiction, yeah. And then so then she had to take him back home, and then he lived with her, and he was also stealing from her, to keep up again with the addiction. And obviously he didn't leave with me, but I saw that, and then finally I gave in, and I said, you know what, let me take you to rehab. And so I took him to rehab. I admitted him for 6 weeks. I attended all the meetings, brought him food every day, and he was clean. He was clean, and so finally he was discharged after 6 weeks, and I brought him home, and then we start life for him anew. So new clothes, new computer, new phone, and then he was in my house. And then at that time it was summer, and we left him in my house to go for the summer break, and then we are going to come back and look for a job for him. So I
Mm-hmm.
said, just relax till we come back. I come back, and he literally, stole everything. I mean, whatever he could take from the house, and took and sold it to get money to buy. I don't know what kind of drugs, to tell you the truth. Until this day, I don't know what kind of drugs that he was taking. So he relapsed, and then I kicked him out of the house. Again, he went back to my mom's house. Next thing you know, my mom could not handle him.
Mm.
And uh, again, we tried. The holy water here in Ethiopia is very well known to healing demons,
Mm-hmm.
So we decided to send them in one of the holy place, a, a church, maybe 2 hours away from Addis, and for him to be baptized, and then be in the church for like a week or two. And then he went, and he was okay, and he came back, and again he relapsed. And my godmother took him, and again he went to her house. He managed, and he couldn't handle it. I mean, I don't know what it was, but he just couldn't make it. So finally, it was a long process, but I think he was in this state of mind and addiction for close to 6 years. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a tough moment. And I keep blaming my mom, and I keep saying, it's you who's the enabler for him, because you give him this, you give him that. Because first I didn't know how deep it was.
Yeah.
So, but until it happened to me, and then the time I brought him back to my house, that he gets out of control. So finally, I remember the day it happened. I called my mom and I told her that I was going to West Africa for the Ebola outbreak, and then I was
Yeah.
just going to take an assignment. And I told her that I'm leaving, and she said, "Oh, what are you going to do with your kids?" And I said, "You're going to come and look after my kids, and I'm going to go." And she said, "No, I already have a kid." I said, "What do you mean?" So she was addressing my brother,
Yeah.
and I said, "No, it's you. Let Get him out. Just leave him alone. Don't baby him. We tried everything. He's not responding. So let him, face his challenge on his own." So this is what I said to her on Monday. And on Wednesday, she calls me. I'm at work, and she says, "Oh, listen, he's gone." And I said, she's crying in the background. She says, "Listen, he's gone, he's gone, he's gone. He's gone." And I said, "Who's gone?" And she said, "Oh, his name is was Alex." And he said, "Alex hanged himself." And it was the saddest thing until this day, I hear that conversation with my mom, and it breaks my heart. And I said, "Who?" I still didn't understand. So somebody had to get on the phone and tell me the facts. So I was at work. Couldn't just. I don't remember if I was sitting or standing, but anyway, it was a heartbreaking moment, and I froze for a few minutes, and next thing I know, I understood what happened. So I packed up my stuff, and then I left to see my mom. And my mom lives, I remember, not at this in the city, but
Yeah.
in Debre Zeit, which is
They said an
45
hour.
minutes away.
Yeah. 45 in an
So
hour.
I drove to her house to see, and it's true, he was gone. Yeah. So he committed suicide. So the bottom line is Ethiopia now. He was the first one that I encountered that early in my life,
Mm-hmm.
but still what I see, especially through my job, also similar situation, young people getting addicted to
Yeah.
some sort of drug, some alcohol, I don't know, but and there's quite a lot of drugs out there within the
Yeah.
city, and people underestimate it, but I saw in my own eyes, um, up to cocaine in Addis. So there's
Yeah.
cocaine, and of course weed is everywhere, but at alcohol, I mean, you name it. And I don't know what kind of uh, in terms of prescription drugs there is, but I think no, I
Tramadol.
think there's quite a lot, but yeah, there's what the kids were, cough syrup, and
Yeah.
then
The
what
cough
else that
syrup.
they
Hand
syrups
sanitizer.
and hand sanitizer, and I heard that recently.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's out of control, and the sad thing is, there's no support, there's no treatment center, and the demand and the supply for the treatment, there's one particularly that was just maybe 2-3 years ago opened. The name of the facility is called Sitota, and
Yeah.
that's where all the young people that are addicted to drugs are going nowadays, and most of them are kids from the private school, very well-to-do family, and addicted to some sort of drugs, and then not getting enough help. And I think seeing my brother going through that underneath my own eyes, it's in a way a rude awakening. Like, you feel like you will know when something is going wrong, but
Mm-hmm.
really don't. And also I think it's because the anger and the frustration that you face day to day as a family, uh,
Yeah.
you know and that's what I think. And my frustration was coming from, and I used to say to my mom, stop supporting his bad habit. And then she said to me one day, "If you have 5 fingers, if this gets um, winded or something,
Mm-hmm.
would you cut it off?" And I said, "Since that finger is not on my hand, if I see this infection or some sort of a wound that's not healing," I said, "I'll cut it off." And but what she meant to say, when it's on her own finger, it's harder.
Mm-hmm.
And then I understood then as a mother, I said, you know what, I'm not going to judge, I'll leave it alone. So that's the time that he was really struggling with her, and they were struggling, and I couldn't intervene. And, I'm the one, by the way, when I moved back here, who, who sent him to India to do his university, and then come back here, get him a job, get him a car. And, but he couldn't handle it. And then finally he did commit suicide. And then I look back now when I see a lot of young people on the street, and I said, you know what, maybe he's in a better place,
Right.
because like I said, there's not enough support out here.
Yeah.
And the amount of drugs that is out there, and it's not compatible
Yeah.
to the environment and what's happening. So
Yeah.
where it's coming from, I don't know. It's all in the private schools now. I know nobody's talking about it. The big elephant in the room. I know it's everywhere in the
Yeah.
city.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we do have some of our staff member also who goes through this kind of addiction.
Yeah.
So this is the road to where to recovery, but still it's a sore subject for all of us.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about him so that way he can still live in my
Yeah.
mind
Yeah.
and my heart.
Yeah.
But he was a sweetheart. I mean, he was a very polite, very handsome uh, man. But and he had a beautiful girlfriend who wanted to marry him, but he refused. And then, but he's gone now. And at age, he'd have been 34. Yeah, but
Yeah.
he left so soon.
Yeah.
So yeah, so this is the sore subject in our family. And I think after that, uh, it left something within the family also, that we all uh, disconnected. I think that's the impact after his death.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow. Thank you so much
yeah.
for sharing that, Kelem. It's such a very sad story. I know that, you always mention your brother, but I never really got to ask um what, like, for you to explain everything to me in this depth, just because I was very sensitive about whether you wanted to talk about it, until,
True.
when we were having a conversation and you said, hey, I can talk about this, then I was super excited because that would have also given me the opportunity to listen to his story firsthand from you. So I'm learning about this
Mhm.
for the first time with the audience, right?
True. Yeah.
So now I want us to, we're gonna definitely talk about a lot of the things that there a few things that you pointed out or you mentioned, which I would really love to talk about so that we can shed more light into it. But I want to go back a little bit to, when you were growing up with him. I mean, he was such a sweet kid, a calm kid, and everything. And so when did you realize that he had a problem? Like,
Okay.
when did you start seeing things different? Because I would imagine that you probably were in the US, and
Yes.
you were not with him for most of the time. And then when you went back,
Mhm.
when did you see that, hey, this person is different. Like, this is not who.
Yeah, it's not himself. Yeah.
Mhm,
Yeah, it's true. Like, yeah. So what happened is, like I said, I left very young. So growing up, he's my mother's son. He's
mhm,
not my father's son.
mhm,
So my mother divorced, and
mhm.
she left, and she had him. So he pretty much did not. We didn't grow up together anyway,
Yeah.
not in the same household.
Mhm,
But he always came and visited the family, and he was the joy of my mom. She raised him. That's the only child that she raised on our own.
mhm,
Most of us were raised by my dad and by a helper in the house. So we, honestly speaking, we didn't know him that well, especially myself and my older brother and sisters. But my younger two sisters knew him very well
mhm,
because they were younger, and then when we left for America, so they lived together. So we knew about him. We always, when we sent something for Christmas, we sent for the three of them. And we always knew that whenever we talked to my mom, he was always with her. So honestly speaking, I can't say that I knew Alex in a personal level
mhm.
until I came back to Ethiopia. which was
Yeah.
in 2002. By
Mhm.
then, he was just graduating high school. So I came back. So when I came back, I saw him that just finishing high school, but he tried to go to the US and he couldn't.
Mhm.
He was refused a visa a couple of times. So finally, I said, you know what? If you want to go to really do your university, I know in India is a good has a good program. So let me
Mhm.
send you there. And he said, okay. So he was willing. He was attentive to my kids, myself. Always respected me. Addressed me by my name, and so so honestly, I didn't know that he was suffering from anything because what I knew was always been the same.
Yeah.
So finally, after he came back from India, uh, he was wanting to go out partying, which I allowed that. He wanted to wear the fashion clothes I bought, but then he started lying. Things were we start missing things around the house,
Mhm.
and my mom is complaining. Everybody else is complaining in the house. And then I start seeing his eyes turning red,
Mm.
slowly. But I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Plus, this kind of stuff is not common,
Yeah.
especially
It's
that
not common.
early. Now I can tell you that is very common. The young girls and boys are doing drugs,
Yeah.
and so at that time, so for me, it was new. Even when I was in America, I was not uh, in any shape that I was not encountering uh, anyone with substance abuse. I didn't know anyone. In fact, maybe alcohol. I saw a lot of alcohol drinking. Other
Mhm.
than that, I didn't see anybody using drugs. So finally, when I realized that he's having, and then he starts smoking, so you start smelling him, and then his fingers and his throat, his lips,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
changing. So finally, that we knew that he was doing something. And so then I said, you need to stay away from my house because I have young children, and
Yeah.
you're not going to be a good influence. And that
Mhm.
was it. So, but other than that, no one can say in our family that he was this, he was that. Never. He was the kindest person, always willing to help, but he ended up being addicted to, I couldn't tell you, like I said, which drug, but and he had an addiction, and he needed money, and he couldn't keep up with that demand. And then he he sold everything that he can find.
Yeah.
And then my mom started locking her house. And one time we even gave him a car, and then he even sold the car. But anyway, we managed to get it back. But yeah, it was
Mhm.
a long process. And
Yeah.
so just to go back, and now looking back, like I said, when I see a lot of young men and women on the street and the rehab center and the treatment center, I
Mhm.
keep saying my brother is in a better place
Yeah.
because
So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I know for sure that substance abuse, especially in addition to mental health, you know, is a very, it's still a relatively new topic in our African community, especially back home. It's still something that people are trying to wrap their heads around because we all know that we're, in our communities back home in Africa, we're used to all of the communicable diseases, the diseases that we can, feel, right? We can, it's
see.
like diseases that hurt us not mentally, but physiologically. Like you have a bellyache or you have a headache,
Mm.
things that you can communicate with you. But now we're talking about mental health that some people even think is an illusion, right? People think like,
Oh,
oh, if you feel down or if you're depressed, everybody has been through this situation, you'll be
yeah,
just
get up.
fine,
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
like just put
Mhm.
yourself up. Or if you're feeling down, it means you're weak.
It
So
is related to weak, especially for men, for boys. You
yes,
cannot express that emotion that I'm feeling sad. I don't feel like, yeah,
right,
you can express that.
you
Yeah,
can
it's true.
express that. And I was just thinking about it, and I was like, this may actually be one of the factors that push especially the men to drugs, to substance abuse, because they are
Coping.
looking for an outlet to cope, like to put their that, that depression, that
Mm,
weight. So that's their own coping mechanism to cover up everything so that they shouldn't be looked upon as weak and stuff. So, and then the more they go deeper into that hole of substance abuse, the more they're trying to, use it
mhm.
to cover even more things, in as much as they're also trying um to feel,
Survival.
yeah, they're
Mm,
trying
survival.
to have that feeling, they're trying to make up for that initial feeling. Like, I mean, I know I've read in a couple of books, and I've also watched a couple of videos that say, how people get addicted is like when you first get introduced to the substance, whatever it is that you are addicted to, there's some rush of dopamine. There's that height of, of
Mhm,
pleasure that you feel,
mhm.
that you're always
And then
trying to
making you
lead up
feel
to that.
numb, and then to
Yes.
forget. Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
the
there's that
numbness.
feeling
Yeah.
that you're always trying
Mm.
to get. So the more you use substances, you're trying to get to that height,
Threshold is
yeah,
getting
that
higher.
initial
Yeah.
feeling, but you can never really get to it. So
Mm,
I really feel like this is a topic that is very important for us to talk about, because if this was something that was, I'm just thinking, like, if this was something that was normal, or at least something that it wasn't foreign in our community, maybe Alex would have opened up to talk to someone, like, this is
mhm.
how I
Yes.
feel stressed. And also, the whole ideology of men in our African community, they have to be strong, they have to
Mhm,
have their own. So maybe with
mhm,
all that, he was feeling so much pressure trying to build his own life and trying to have his
mhm,
own, that he just could not cope by himself, and he needed some kind of assistance from a
outlet. Mhm,
substance, you know.
mhm,
So because I'm when you were talking, I was just thinking about all of these things, and I was like, I mean, I know you came from a very good family, you came from a well-off family. You guys were not like, I mean, I would think that money was not a primary issue.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So to be in Addis, or at least Ethiopia, which
Mm,
is very relatively
mm,
advanced compared to other
yeah.
African countries, the struggles we went through in Ethiopia definitely are not the same struggles so the struggles we went through in Cameroon are not the same struggles we went through in Ethiopia,
Ethiopia. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Ethiopia is way more advanced, So I was trying to figure out, just trying to think about the possible issues that he may have been facing, or the demons that he may have been fighting, without even having the chance to talk to anyone. Because number one, nobody could really understand what was going on, because he did not
Yeah.
talk about it. And he was probably afraid of being judged by
Looking
the
weak
community.
or
Yes.
looking weak. Yeah. Looking weak. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's yeah. You touched the good points too. And I think, and then from my side of view, I said, what's wrong with this kid? So I'm judging him too.
Yeah.
So I
And
didn't
you're
give him
also
a chance
asking, like,
either.
you don't know, you're trying to figure it
Yeah.
out as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So, uh, and, um, and like I said, if there was any space or acceptance within society where you can really express your feelings, and that would have been okay. But today, in 2022, still, I know a lot of men cannot accept counseling as a treatment. Like
Yes.
that's a
That's true.
sissy. That's a sissy. That's not man's work.
Yeah.
It's you ladies. That's you talking. And again, uh,
And
I see it
also,
with my
most
own
men
two kids.
cannot accept counseling from a female counselor, because they
There
don't
you go.
see a woman talking to them, telling them what to do. That's another
What to do?
trend that I have seen. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not even what to do when you go counseling. I mean, you just sit there and then they talk about your own problems, so you can reflect on what you've gone through. So, like I said, I have a boy and a girl, and I see the difference. My daughter is open to any counseling
Yeah.
service if she could, get it. But my son, he said, "What for?"
Yeah.
So, and I keep reminding him, like, it's like breathing and venting, and then taking things off your chest and trying to find another way of handling things. So again, that's society. We need to wake up before we lose more um, more guys that are struggling through this depression, or and so they will be saved.
Yeah.
And also young girls now. And when I go to this treatment center, which is I do attend a lot because of my job also, but also on a personal level, another friend of mine who is not a young girl, but younger than I am, but had 3 kids. I love it. I love it to death because she's a very pure soul,
Mm-hmm.
and she sold a property that made her um, end up having a lot of money in her hand. So before you know it, she casually started taking some kind of recreational drugs. Before you know it, she lost everything. And when I say everything, her children are now raised by their father and grandmothers, and
Oh.
she lost the money, and she was on the street last time I checked, because her family sent her to a treatment center in South Africa for 3 months. She came back. She relapsed again. She was in the treatment center here in Ethiopia for 1 month, no, 6 weeks, 2 times or 3 times, and she relapsed. So she's on the street now. She's
Oh.
homeless. So it's out of control. And so for me, talking about the 2 people that I really dearly love, my younger brother, who is no longer with us, and my very good friend who's on the street today, is a victim of, um, again, a mental illness,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
know she has mental illness in her family. And
Mm-hmm.
I think the fact that she was taking this drug, I think expedited her or her mental illness, made it exposed it. Like in terms of medically, they said if you have any kind of mental illness, you shouldn't be abusing any substance,
Yeah.
because that expedited. And then I think that is the reason why she's on the street today, because looking back now, talking to her family, definitely she had some kind of a depression, and then she
Yeah.
ended up on, yeah, abusing the substance. So you're right. If we accept some kind of treatment, like counseling, those kind of things will be hopefully minimized or treated earlier.
Yeah. And it's very easy for people to say, oh, how can you be well off and then or how can you have someone in your life and then you're driving on the road and you see them on the street and like, don't you feel bad? Or how can you have someone in your family who has mental illness or at least even substance abuse problems, and you just let them be? You don't, you don't do everything you just let them kill themselves or something. It's very easy
Mm,
to judge from the
judge,
outside,
but like you
but
said,
these, at the
because
end
it's
of the
not
day, these are
visible.
adults. Number one, these are adults, and they would, if it was a kid, maybe we can have a case there, like, oh, you could tie this kid down or lock the doors. But these are adults that, even though they're not making rational decisions, but at the end of the day, they're adults and they will not let you do certain things to them. Like your brother would probably not let you tie him down, like to say
Oh,
you're not going
definitely
anywhere
not.
or whatever.
Mm,
And,
mm,
all he needs to do is just open the door and go and not communicate with you. And then one time you see him on the street and you want to take him off the streets, for example, and he would not want to come, and you cannot
mm,
really do much, because you
yeah.
can't bring the police because they're adults
No,
and they
no,
haven't committed a crime,
no,
So
they didn't.
yeah, if
Yeah.
anything, they're sick, so uh,
Yes.
what are
You
one of
said.
the things what are one of the things that you, from your experience, and I just wanted to put this disclaimer out there, I should have done that when we started, like, we're not trying to spill out facts, we're talking strictly based on experience.
Personal experience,
Yes,
exactly.
personal experience. So what are one of the issues, like one of the, like, signs, and I'll not even say signs, but what are one of the struggles that you had seen with your brother, when he was doing, like, when he was abusing the drugs and stuff like that, in addition to the fact that he did not really want to talk about it with you, and also he basically sold everything. So what were one of the struggles that you faced as a caretaker, like caring for him as a whole?
Again, between my mom and myself, of course, we looked after him, but our intentions were different. I mean, she was worried about what people were going to say,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
and that
Typical
at the
African
beginning.
mom.
Yeah, typical, she was sad for him, but yet she was worried about what the neighbor's going to say, what the auntie's going to say. And I said, I don't care what they're going to say. He is sick, he needs help. And then the beauty is, as soon as I approach him, like the 2-3 times I put him in rehabilitation center, he was positive, he was willing. He didn't resist me. Each time I approached him, he was, sorry, my dog is barking. Anyway, so he was fantastic, when it comes to that. And but in terms of my friend, she also aggressive, and when it comes to her, she is refusing because this is today, and his is 7 years ago, and then I guess 7 plus 6, yeah, almost 13 years ago. In her case, even the society now, even the in terms of security guards and police, they are aware of the drug, what's doing to people, what's happening in the society, but nobody's talking about it openly yet.
Yeah.
But in her case, because she had money, of course, whoever the suppliers are
Yeah.
always looking after her to supply her need.
Yeah. The yes
So, and
people.
she has the money.
Mhm.
And so there's that. So the fight is not only them who we looking after, the dealers, the suppliers are the ones that are on your way, and you don't know who they are. And
Yeah.
that's what's crippling the society now. I mean, until it's talked about openly and then addressed, kids in school are eating brownies, I think baked with
Yeah.
some kind of drug,
Yeah.
and they're collapsing in school. And that's been reported a couple of the private schools, and
Yeah.
I don't know. And then the kids are not saying anything, that
Yeah.
somebody supplied them, and then they're not going to point, this is
Finger.
who supplied
Yeah.
us. So they're not, because they're telling them that they'll threaten them, saying that we'll kill your parents or something like that. So it's not an out and open yet, but the
Mhm.
struggle is just starting. And in fact, a lot of diasporas from America too, they're bringing their children back here, the
Yeah.
ones that are going through this addiction problem,
Yeah.
to make the matter worse, because looking for the holy water and thinking that will heal. And then sometimes it does heal if you believe in it, but those kids are medically, physically, chemically needs to be
Addressed.
rehabilitated,
Yeah.
addressed, because the problem is deep,
Yeah. It's deeper than that. That's true. Yeah. So
so
thank you so much for sharing that. I wanted to ask, right? I've always wanted to know, because I know, like when I first went to Ethiopia, that was like what, almost 17 years ago. I,
mhm,
you know, I always saw like, especially guys on the streets, like just casually chewing that green leaf. I forgot what you called it,
mhm.
you know?
Chat.
Yeah.
Cat
That,
is in English, they pronounce it there, chat. But
yeah.
that was more common in some tribe. It was traditional thing after during fasting season, and
Yeah.
then to do meditation, to pray. But
Yeah.
now it's everywhere during the daytime, nighttime.
Yeah. People
Women,
just chewing
man,
it. So what is
doing it.
in that?
Yeah,
What is in that stuff, in those leaves? Like, what is it? Is it like a,
I think it's. I don't think it's not suppressive, but I mean, definitely, I could
does it
not
make you
tell you.
high?
Yes, it does make them high. And then to activate it, if you take sweet, this is what I was told,
Mhm.
it's enhance it. So the the high will last for 24 hours or something.
Oh my God.
So and then it's a cash crop for Ethiopia. It gets exported to all the Middle Eastern side of
Mhm, mhm.
in this side, Djibouti. Daily there's a flight that goes to Djibouti and Somali region, uh, and Yemen. I don't know if they're still doing it today, but so
And
it's
is it
done openly.
addictive? Is
It's openly done.
Yeah,
It's
because
not a
it's still
yeah.
not like being censored, or like, it's just like walking on the
No.
street. People still chew
Yes.
it,
Yeah. And then it's in the afternoon. So once they chew that chat, and then if either they're zonked out, or if they're awake and then driving, they would be dangerous to
Yeah, under the
everybody. And
influence.
yeah, and then over time, use of course affects your mental status. And then
Yeah,
the more you do it, the more you react less, but yet you damage yourself more. And
yeah.
a lot of people, I mean, it does also affect the GI system. And but it's openly done. It's not
Wow.
considered as a, I mean, obviously in Europe and America, it's considered drug, so you cannot
Mm-hmm.
use it or take it around. But here in Ethiopia, it's openly
Yeah.
used.
So, do you think maybe that could have been what jump started like Alex's addiction, because he started from that and then went to some other thing?
I think so, because it's widely available. It's cheap at that time,
Yeah.
but now it's expensive. I think that's where it started, because his teeth and his appetite also suppresses your appetite.
Mm,
So I think that's where it started, definitely. Yeah. And then a lot of students use it, because to keep them awake, and then to keep them going and during exams time. But
mm,
now, once you started, you can't stop, because, like you said,
yeah.
you want that fix the first time, fix over and over again, but it doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where I started. But now I can't say much, but I know there's quite a lot of
Of other
drugs
things.
that are out there,
Yeah.
but I don't know where it's coming from.
Right.
Uh,
I
Obviously.
wanted us to actually talk about that because,
Mhm.
and this is basically based off of what we could be predicting, or what we may have experienced personally and stuff. Because on a personal level, I feel like, of course, I know we have a problem, especially in the continent of Africa, like I said, because mental health and substance abuse is something that is just getting new. I honestly feel like with the emergence of social media, that has really exacerbated the use of substance abuse,
Yes.
basically the
Yes.
rate of substance abuse, because the Western culture has kind of romanticized the use of drugs, even in like lyrics, and
Mm.
getting drunk on Robitussin, or what is the other one? I don't even know.
Tramadol.
Yeah,
That's
just
another
all
thing
this
that's
other
widely
medical
used.
drugs,
Hmm.
illicit drugs, they have kind of romanticized it. And, here, quite all right, people who are addicted have more resources, and even better resources
Yes.
than
Yes.
back home in Africa as a whole. And I say Africa because
Exactly.
in the whole continent, it's, even in our culture, it's not part of our culture. So, the
Mm-hmm.
exposure through social media to the Western culture is kind of like diluting our own values back home, and introducing, especially the young generation and even our generations as well, to
Mm-hmm.
elicit the use of illicit drugs to make it look
Drugs.
cool. And also, believe it or not, there's a lot of people struggling with one thing or the other in our continent. I mean, even I grew up, all of my adult life has been in America, but growing up in Africa when I was in my, adolescent ages, there were just so many struggles. Like, even from school, boarding school was so harsh, and, we didn't have access to money like that. So,
It
believe
was not a
me, if
priority.
the
It was not
yeah,
an
it wasn't
option.
even a priority.
Mm-hmm.
But if we had that access to drugs, many people would have probably depended on drugs just to numb the
Definitely.
struggles and the pain. So I feel like
Definitely.
the emergence of social media has exposed us to, access. I would say access, not that social media brings us the drugs, but like
The
seeing
access.
the lifestyle of, especially the Western culture, we yearn that in our continent. And then now we try to look for different ways to have that access to medication. Either we do that in the kitchen, like how we're talking about hand sanitizer, people
I
getting
could not
addicted to
believe it
hand
when I heard that.
sanitizer,
Yes.
you know, or people
Yeah.
just go online, Google, and look for different concoctions and put together. Or people can, you know, like for example, as we were talking earlier, Ethiopia is kind of a hub in Africa because, you know, you guys have a very fantastic airline and everybody going to Ethiopia. Most people actually have to stop in the
Mm-hmm.
Addis before going to the next
It's
into
the
the
hub.
next. So it's like you bringing African Union to, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Ethiopia, not the organization, please. But
Yes.
it's like you're
No.
bringing,
Yeah.
you know, all this
Yeah. No.
African.
Africa's connected with the rest of the world thanks to
Yes,
Ethiopian Airlines. Definitely. Yes.
yes.
The
So
map
it's
is all
like,
connected. Yeah.
right. And then everyone comes in, you know, some people stay, some people come from not only Africa, actually, other parts of the world. They come
Asia.
in
Yeah.
into
Europe.
Ethiopia, and of
America.
course they
Mm-hmm.
bring whatever, you know. So I feel like that is where the problem that contributes to the problem as well. What do you think?
I mean, yes, I mean, like you said, I'm not claiming anything, but just from my personal view, I know I'm proud of Ethiopian Airlines, but definitely Ethiopia has been, or Africa has been connected with the rest of the world thanks to the airlines. So that has, I think, definitely opened that avenue for
Mm-hmm.
different illicit drugs to come and go, maybe because
Mm-hmm.
none of it grow. I mean, obviously chat is growing within the country, and then it's widely available, and then it's openly practiced, but the rest, the
Yeah.
cocaine stuff, obviously is coming from outside world.
Outside, yeah.
Definitely. And then how it's gotten here, obviously through the airline, like
Yeah.
most countries in South America and in America, it's suffering the
Yeah.
same way it's been shipped in and out. But
Yeah.
again, because the awareness is not there yet, maybe
Mm-hmm.
now better than maybe 10 years
More.
ago, but now I'm
Yeah.
sure maybe they're looking into it. They have sniff dogs now,
Mm-hmm.
but yet I'm sure it came somewhere from Asia,
Yeah.
and then going to West Africa, and then coming from South
Yeah.
Africa to, I mean, all
Yeah.
direction, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
definitely it's available. Where it come from, I don't know, but definitely that will be the source.
Yeah. And also
No point.
with respect to pain medications, you know, and when you say West Africa as well, I can also relate to Cameroon, you know, because I know people, I actually know people like extended family members or even like friends or classmates or whatever. I know people who are either currently addicted or are in remission. Hopefully they don't relapse, you know, or people who have lost their lives to the use of illicit drugs,
Addiction.
you know. And it's so sad because a lot of people just ingest these substances without really knowing exactly what they're taking, and some
Yeah,
of
you
them
know.
know actually. But I also feel like another thing that is going to, or actually is currently exacerbating the use or the abuse of especially pain medications is the lack of regulation. Anybody can walk
Yes.
into a pharmacy and get tramadol. Anybody can walk
Yes.
into a pharmacy and get oxycodone, you know. So
The
there
good
is,
thing that we don't have that much of a prescription drugs. I mean, the extent will be tramadol at this point within Ethiopia.
Mhm.
Other than that, oxycodone or codeine, it's not available. That is not available, at least to my knowledge,
Mhm.
in the
Right,
pharmacy level. But like you
right.
said, those are simply that's how you get the prescription for following your surgery, some kind of surgery procedure, and then you will end up being addicted to the prescription drugs, and then it becomes out of control. I think in that level here, maybe, I don't know, honestly, that I have not seen, but from the chat point of view or from alcohol
Yeah,
level, yes, it's higher. And then the other one, like cocaine, crack, I don't know where it's
yeah,
coming from, but
yeah,
it's out there. It's
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Yeah,
And you know, these are the kind of things that, you know, our lawmakers need to look into and be more vigilant
definitely,
about, you know, because
definitely.
this is a silent killer. Like in the next maybe 5-10 years, like probably going to be a public health emergency. And these are the things that our lawmakers in Africa and even the healthcare providers need to be on the watch for, because this
Look
is a
out.
silent killer, especially mental health. I really wish that we had as many facilities and as much focus
Treatment.
on mental health. And I really, but I've seen an improvement for sure in, the focus that we're
Definitely,
putting
yes, that's the hope.
to mental
But the
health.
yes, but the population and the demand and the supply is not
Supply, it doesn't balance off,
it's not balancing out. Yeah, but
Yeah,
otherwise, yes, there's hope.
yeah.
Yeah, but I also wanted to mention something that something that's not common maybe on the street now. There's a lot of young kids, homeless, and they call them the sniff boys. And
Mhm.
what they're doing, they're sniffing
What?
glue and glue. It's a heavy glue to stick things,
Oh my God.
and yeah, and then they keep it in a plastic um, bottle, like a disposable plastic bottle, and then they keep the glue there. They inhale it. So, and
But
then
how do
I
they inhale
enjoy
it? They just the smell of the glue?
the smell of the glue. And so I think they heat it up maybe because sometimes it's golden. And I walked around and I took my son to see them. And so what they said was, listen, suppresses our appetite, our hunger, and then it keeps us warm, and then it keeps us happy.
Hmm.
So I didn't tell them to stop doing it because I didn't have any solution for them. And then to tell them just those is not good for you. But this is also something that's out of control on the street.
Oh my
And those
God.
kids, when they're high on those glue, they are very violent and they fight with each other, they make the street unsafe. And like you said, our lawmakers have to be alert on those developing things
Yeah.
within the society and address it, and then have um, a proper rehabilitation center. And those kids, they grew up on the street, so they don't only need a mental health treatment. They need a holistic kind of approach that will help
Yeah.
them recover, because they are destroyed. I'm sure, I don't know what kind of effect will have on their brain or on their development, but
Wow.
that's also something that's out of control and done openly. And
Wow.
like you said, it's true. Our lawmakers are the one needs to really address. And then I heard a couple of times that the government is trying to help them, assist them to get them off the street. And then one time they took them to a camp and they came back again. So it's not removing them from the street
Yeah.
is what's going to help them.
Yeah.
They need to be addressed,
Yeah.
you know, and,
Yeah.
and they're becoming thief. They're becoming uh, they they are criminals now
Yeah.
because they have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So so the drug abuse is not only the prescription drugs, and then not only alcohol, and then
Yeah. It's like
the crack
concoctions,
cocaine,
different.
concussion, the ones that you said. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, this
Oh
is
my
common now.
goodness. I'd
Yeah,
never heard about that, And
yeah,
one thing that I want to commend you for is like taking your son to see
yes.
the reality of what these people go through.
Hmm.
I mean, unfortunately, we're not at a position to have as many resources to, help these people and provide them solutions because, I mean, I feel like on a larger scale, the government should be able to do that. But taking your son to see the realities of all this of what these people are going through is is going to be very impactful, I hope, so that he knows that, hey, if I do this, this is where I could possibly end up,
End up. Yes.
so that's such a good thing. I really, it's one thing that we're starting to have facilities, right? Rehab facilities to
Mhm.
care for these people. But I strongly feel like we focus on only the initial care and people don't really put um like the relapse into account, because a lot of people are like, oh yeah, he or she spent 3 months in this facility and they're
That's not
totally
enough.
fine. Hey, they look good, they feel better, and we let them go, and that's it, they should be fine. Now if they relapse, then it's on them. But
Mm.
I honestly feel like mental health as a whole, with substance abuse especially, it's like a journey. It's not a destiny. Like the like a
Yes,
healing
I
from
like that.
that is from
Mm-hmm.
treatment, and healing from mental health and substance abuse is a journey and not a destination, because the chances of relapse is extremely high. Like, think of it this
Very.
way. Think of like your favorite meal, and or a favorite moment that you had in your childhood, and then you see something just random that reminds you of that favorite meal, for example, and you start craving it. It's
Mhm.
like you want to go and eat that meal, and then all you can do is just make an order or cook the meal, right? I feel,
Mhm.
I mean, I'm no expert, but I honestly feel like that could also be one of the things that is going on, because yeah, you are feeling better at that moment, and you're drug free and you're clean, but like it takes just one
It can
trigger.
relapse.
Yeah, it
Yes,
takes just one
true.
random trigger that you don't even know about, that will bring that urge for you to go back to the
Mhm.
drugs, and the urge will be more than your willingness to fight
Before.
it, and that's how you go
Mm.
back. So a lot of us, we have I know that they're not, again, we don't have resources, right? Because
Mhm.
if we had resources, I feel like we would have been able to better handle like relapse cases. you know I mean, the
Mm.
system doesn't have resources as much as the patients themselves. They don't even
Of
have
course.
money to keep
I
going
mean,
back,
yeah, that
you know
and a country level, yeah. As
yes.
a whole African country, we just waking up and struggling to first of all
Put food on the table.
implement peace. And then, yeah, the food and the peace is the priority at this point. While we're
Yeah,
tackling this major aspect, there's this drug problem, and it's finishing the youth. This is the future. This is the future generation. I don't think if we don't handle it now, there's not going to be a lot of them who can take over and then run the country. That much
yeah,
is what I'm concerned,
yeah,
you know, because the unemployment is so high that the youth are easily drifted to this kind of easy way out, and
yeah,
that requires a lot of money and stuff like that. But so, like I said, this is another topic for next time. But true, it's just again at home. There's no home, for those street kids. Obviously, there's no home to begin
yeah,
with, and it's like, so you wonder, like, why are they on the street to begin with? That's the main source,
yeah,
and obviously those ones that are already addicted. I don't know how it's going to be handled, but at least to cut it in the in the bottom, you have to take the girls from the street also off the
yeah,
street, because the
yeah,
girls are also having babies on the street, and then
yeah,
and they get hooked on the same routine, and then before you know it, that's a vicious cycle. And again, Africa as a whole uh, needs to really address this issue, you know, as a priority with the peace.
yeah,
Being peace is also another priority, but this is also something that's happening in the 21st century for all of us. And then,
yeah,
it's killing Africa.
yeah.
It's killing the youth.
Yeah, that's very
Yeah.
true. And another thing that, I really want to encourage our people to do is just to speak up, because I can only imagine the demons that Alex was fighting, and I
Oh,
feel like
yes.
at the point where he probably the point where he took his life, he probably was not able to fight those demons anymore. Like he was at the end of it, like not any money could fill that void, nothing could help that pain or that battle that he was fighting, and he was like, I'd rather end this than
Mhm.
to keep fighting back and
Going.
forth.
They keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Because, yeah, he's hurt his mother. He saw his mother really sad. And then I tell you, my mother at the end, when he died, she couldn't cry. I think, in my opinion, she ran out of tears
yeah,
because she said,
yeah.
I already buried my son 6 years ago.
Oh my
So she
god.
said, now he's in a better place. So you're right, the demon and the coping mechanism. And, like, again, at home, for the message for all of us as mothers, we need to help our kids to help them express their feelings and to
Yeah,
deal with any shortcomings, and then not to label things, so that way they can express themselves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And you do a very good job
lesson
at
learned,
that,
but
actually.
it's not easy.
Yeah. You do a good
I
job
hope
at
so.
that.
I hope so.
Yeah. I've
Yeah, it's
watched
not
you from
easy.
the sidelines. It's not easy. It's not,
It's
but
not easy.
I feel like you've done a wonderful job, at that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And never forget that. I
Thank
know
you,
my mom
Neha.
tells you all the time, but never forget that.
Yes.
You're such a wonderful mother.
Thank you. It's not easy, but like you said, especially being single mom.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
yeah, but I have the support system that helps. Uh, Dr. Grace is number one in here, the grandmother, she says, she calls them. She addresses herself when it comes to their eyes. So, yeah, but I hope this, like you said, the beginning of this conversation, but we cannot tackle it on our level. But again, if we all speak about it, then it will become normal, and then we can find a solution for it together.
Yeah, I agree. So are there any centers that you may know, like for example in Ethiopia, that you can recommend people to go to if they have any problems, or if they know anyone that has a problem mentally and also with substance abuse?
Sure. In the government center, the Paulos St. Paul Hospital has a rehabilitation center,
Mm-hmm.
and also private level will be Sitota. It's a hospital privately run by Dr. Jonas,
In
a
Addis.
fantastic physician, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
psychiatrist that also run this treatment center where I took my friend and a lot of patients from our organization also. And he's done a good job, but we need more because we
Yeah.
are 120 million people,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not enough. We
Yeah.
need more centers like that equipped with the expertise that needs, in every addiction.
Yeah.
And the society will be easy on those people also. I mean, obviously it's
Yeah.
an addiction, and they're not there because I don't think they're there. I mean, obviously they're there because they're done an experiment, but it's harder to get out of it. So to be more sympathetic and then give support. And
Yeah.
then I see a lot of family also burning out, but it's not, like you said, it's a journey, but for that burnout to minimize, to have a support system,
Yeah.
further. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And how can people reach out to you if they want to chit chat?
Oh, so, I guess I'm not the social media person, but my email, my Gmail address I shared with you. And
Okay.
I guess on Facebook, there's a messenger, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Messenger.
but yeah, and my dog is still barking. So I don't know if you can hear it.
I can.
Can you hear her? Yeah. So I guess this is we have to continue talking about this again.
Yes,
There's a lot
definitely.
of aspect to since just the beginning. Then maybe we can focus on the treatment part of it maybe
Oh,
later on.
yes.
And
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Oh, this
yeah.
dog. Yes, for sure. I really, really had a great time having this conversation with you. And I know we've come to the end of this conversation, but this is just the beginning. So, what other last words do you have for our audience, especially those residing in Africa?
Um, Again, like you said it earlier, let's talk about it. And I know in every household, there's one, if not two, family member going through this addiction problem as we
Yeah.
speak. And having this addiction and with a mental health problem, underlying mental health problem, uh, it's a bad combination. So the early intervention is better. So to talk about it, to ask for help, to reach out, and to uh, give them some kind of support, so that way they don't shy away, and then to go more deeper and the abuse. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
earlier, when you see the sign, to approach people and maybe address the problem earlier
Yeah.
before it gets worse. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm available if they need any kind of support, whatever I went through, I can share that experience with them.
Yes. Thank you so much, Kelem, for sharing. It was such a pleasure having this conversation with you. It's not easy to reminisce and share such a very deep and heavy story. And you had that
Mhm.
courage to share. You've always been courageous. So I'm not surprised that you're sharing your story, So
Thank you.
thank you so much. I really appreciate you as a sister. I appreciate you as a friend. Thank you for all you do. And I just want to also end by encouraging our community to talk. I feel like that's why I started this platform, to give us a safe space to have conversations. So I hope
Mhm.
that this topic actually sparks conversations within people in our African circles and even out of our African circles. I hope that everyone can learn at least a few things from this episode and also identify. Hopefully the episode helps our audience identify certain things that they need to look for in their loved ones if they're struggling with anything mentally or with substance abuse, because we
Mhm.
do not want people's lives to end like the way Alex's life ended.
Yes.
So this is really why we're trying to shed more light on this, to save lives, so people don't, run into the same predicament that you did. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you and I love you.
I love you too.
And
Thank you. I hope it went well.
I know it did. So I will catch you on the next episode. Thank you.